Hey everybody, this part won't be long. I want you to listen to what Pete Hegseth said, and I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, but I don't know. I just been kind of doing personal research, whether it be online or in real life. But listen to what Pete Hegseth does, and then watch as his automatic nervous system corrects him, but thinks he's talking to his opponent. Watch this. I can't make this up.
The office. And that's exactly what we learned in voting. We can change some of our voting systems to be more
quick question:
accessible
Are you
to
okay
more
with
people.
voter ID? Are you okay
think,
with voter ID? Because you're going back to the talking points. I get it. The talking points.
He literally just went to a talking point. Are you okay with voter ID? And then he said, you're going back to the talking points. I get it. I'm finna, in this next video, explain how people unaware are doing things, and then immediately after, and it really happens a lot when typing. And then after the thing they just said, they'll say another thing, and it's almost as if you're reading from the outside in, they're talking to themselves and are unaware of it. And they think the whole conversation is for the other person, but it's like someone or the mind itself is adding slick jabs to insult the very people that are trying to insult others. So I'm going to turn this camera around and kind of talk about it, and then you guys can go from there and do your own research. When I say research, I'm not telling you to go out and seek certain things or tempt yourself or who I am, if that makes sense. I'm just simply saying I've become aware of something and I like to share it. Hello, everybody. So, recently, while online, I've been noticing people type paragraphs in certain YouTube video comments, on certain Facebook comments, on certain TikTok comments. Unaware, a lot of times people will say something, and then immediately after, they'll say a second phrase, and not only does it trump the first phrase, but it basically is talking to the user making the phrase in the first place. Hold on, I'll give you a specific example. There was a video talking about what they're doing to Kash Patel and Vivek Ramaswamy. I think that's what their names are. And the world is, Americans, the mainstream majority of the right wing, I assume that's what they label themselves as, that's what they call themselves, were being super racist, right? And so I guess recently both of the men had spoke up on certain holidays from their culture. And so I guess Christian nationalists were like going ham on them, if you will. Or I guess you could say going JPith on them. I guess one of the most famous, influential names out there got online, tagged, I think he tagged them, and was like, get your pagan buffoonery out of here with your blah, 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 blah. Well, the reason why this is important is because a lot of times they say Jesus Christ is the blah, 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 and he saved the blah, 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 blah. And then right after they'll say, get your pagan buffoonery bullshit out of here. Now watch this. There was one man that literally said that. He said, the Lord Jesus Christ has saved my life and is king, and he trumps over all your other religions. And then right under it says, so you Indian Hindus need to get your pagan bullshit out of here. That's why I used that example. So I was reading it right. So I did what I always do. I've told you all, whenever I see God or Jesus, I either read that which I am or mainly I say I am. I'll be like, I'll conjugate it to first person. But then a lot of times they say Jesus and God together in different portions of the sentence. And so when I conjugate it or actually spell it out like who I am or I'm a gracious pig, that's what the man said. The man said, when Jesus was crucified, or the man said, good won and evil was defeated when Jesus was crucified. So get your pagan bullshit out of here or you'll be defeated again. Now, when I read that, I had read good had won when evil was defeated, when I'm a gracious pig was put on the cross. Now, the first thing that happened in my mind was it had did a couple of things. I had tried to become aware from different angles. I had said, one, he is either calling his own God a gracious pig and is so unaware of it that he is in glee, right? Then I said to myself, now that I pay attention and know what Jesus conjugates to and what actually happened in history, a lot of times when people are celebrating that man or whatever, even though it's a death, they're either calling him or themselves pigs, and they're celebrating him being a pagan that got destroyed. So I'm gonna hold on. So he said, when good won on that day, and evil lost when Jesus was crucified on the cross. So that rhymes too. Holy shit. So what that person did was they said, when good won on that day, when who I am not was defeated. Or I said, stop doing that. Stop saying who I'm not for evil and just say evil. I said, when good had won that day, when evil was defeated, and I am a gracious pig was put on the cross. Then under that, because both, either one or two things is possible, or there's a third option, but I'm going to get into the third option after I'm done talking about this. Because it's a weird matrixy, demony kind of, and I don't want to interrupt what I'm doing right now. So after that, it said, so you Hindus need to get your pagan bullshit out of here. So after he has said Jesus was put on the cross and all that stuff, after that first insult to either himself or his own God, he had essentially made the second comment, so get your pagan bullshit out of here. He was talking to himself and was unaware of it. Because Jesus is a name that was fabricated by thousands and thousands, if not millions, of holy men. Watch a documentary on YouTube called 33 Church History to Present. This isn't biblical history. They document, and the Vatican has so much knowledge, because what they do is they have the truth, but I'm going to talk about what the Vatican's doing in a second. Because when y'all think of like the Satan and the devil, y'all minds go to like little red men dancing around and ghouls and dark images, and y'all are playing with cartoons. Those are cartoon-like images. I'm going to explain that. So, but that's not just religion, but religion is the most ironic when I see a lot of people doing these things. And even if you take all the I am and blah, 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 all that out of it, that literal statement about Jesus defeating evil by dying on a cross, and that's another thing. You guys are in like buffoon land. I read some lore about Yochanan ben Zakkai, which is, I know what they're doing. Because I believe a bunch of people were crucified. But the one I know about, and I believe two men named Yehohanan and Yochanan. I think there was two different men. Because I believe one man was crucified when Vespasian was around. And I believe one man was crucified under Nero's orders. But I could be wrong, and it could be a lore spreading out, which is what happened a lot in history. But 3,600 people was killed when they tried to raid that vault. And so that man, the man was killed, the man from Yochanan ben Zakkai, that lore, because what he did was, I guess he said he would die if they saved a bunch of people. But I don't know if that's historically real or not. I really don't, especially after what I've learned. And my great-grandfather trying to escape all that shit and never looking back. So essentially, now here's what I was going to say about the demons and all that. And if you watch 33 Church History to Present, because they talk about the victories and how they was whooping people ass and this lore won and the Catholics, it was like, I couldn't believe it. They was excited about that demon shit. So when I talk about like Satan's and people using a manipulative spirit and stuff like that, and money being the root, because money is just money, dude. What happens is these people want to control as much as they can. And so the easiest way to control somebody, from my perspective and what I've seen, is two different ways. Either violence, which is not sufficient once you become more intelligent. It's especially for society, because even the problem is, take a warrior, for example, like soldiers. What happens to these soldiers when they come back from violence? You can't have a standard strong society. I'm telling you, you can't. Violence ain't the answer. So, and so then what ends up happening is you have religion, manipulation through spiritual teachings of people's. Now, this ties in again. I said, what are humans based on? Rewards and punishments, pain versus pleasure. Pleasure good, pain bad. Some pleasure causes pain, so then it becomes bad. Some pain ends up being pleasureful, like sacrificing negative things. I don't stop saying sacrificing. Like not doing certain things that I would probably want to do, like run around like a savage warlord and just do whatever I want. But then I don't do those things for the greater good. You see how that it takes a higher level of awareness to be aware of certain things. And when there's certain phrases in that book, like the tongue is like fire and a wise man is quiet, because when you sit back and observe versus being so quick to jump and say something, then you can understand it's called situational awareness, man. And violence will not get you anywhere, because I told y'all what you build on is your foundation or home. And so those bricks that you lay, if you start taking bricks out to try to make the house pretty, the house is going to collapse. That's what oneself builds. And so now I'm going to talk about the third option, right? Because this is like some deeper shit. Either we're in a system that's so sadistic and dark, and I understand this when people be like, a lot of people be like, oh, it's sick what happened, but it was a long time ago, we didn't know slavery. But some people be like, we were the victors and y'all were the slaves, and what are you gonna do? And y'all look, you're not no more, and it's our spoils of war and blah 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 blah, you know, all that violent shit. The people that'll call the police if you look at them wrong, and won't lift a bust a grape until they get an AR 500 and go around a bunch of unarmed people. Right, those types, right? So then I said to myself, people are gaslighting and dog whistling so bad that they secretly is really this fucking evil, like as a whole. And that's why they get so embarrassed and turn so pink and red when people become racist or say it out loud. You know what I'm saying? So that, or it's a matrix and everybody around me, different people, are like bots in their way. And certain levels of awareness turns one into an NPC and then one into a greater being. Because then you're more aware of your surroundings and you don't just blurt out the same responses or repeat yourself over and over or try to overtalk people. Or you look over the current situation. I'm getting really good at that. Normally I get real mad, but I'm compressing that and I'm black holing that. And okay, this is the last thing about black holes. I think a lot of people and what I'm noticing when I watch these science videos, they're all the same. They say a couple of definitions, a couple of terms, and then they just say a whole bunch of philosophical stuff. It's like, oh my goodness, everybody copies. And the reason you guys be like, Einstein's equations were perfect, and they perfectly come because they're his equations. He made it. He created. That's like saying the alphabet isn't perfect or the number system is. Whoever created those, they created it. Now we adhere. The more you learn something and actually adhere to that system, make sense. Oh, I know that now. I understand that now. Nothing makes sense. None of this is real. You know what I mean when I say that. I'm saying everything we create is a creation that didn't exist before, right? And now it has meaning and value to our conscious minds. But black holes, I think you guys are way off. First of all, I think I said this if you were to go, now we're going to go outside of everything I'm about to talk about and just talk about sci-fi real quick. If you was to just, I'm in an event horizon, that's not, whoa, especially the gravity they have, that's not how it works. And I believe what'll happen, and we know what happens when you touch an event horizon. I don't know why they're acting goofy. It happens to stars, planets, and all kind of stuff. But when it happens to major stars, that's when you see these pulsars and you see these huge secretion disks around black holes. A lot of them were binary stars. One turned into a black hole when it novaed, and the other one got ate the fuck up and turned to an accretion disk. I believe what'll happen is the time thing. If you was to go into because first of all, none of the models that they said will happen around a black hole are true, I don't think. And so we know what'll happen because we have actual visuals of real black holes. And so the time thing, if you're in a black hole moving that fast now, that's somebody was like, if you go in there for 13 seconds and come out, the universe will have ended. Y'all are base, dude. 13 seconds out here, and a flat relative term is 13 seconds in there. The reason why it's relative and it doesn't appear to be is the same reason why if I move my hand like this, the hand appears to be moving slow. But if I do this, you can't hardly see the hand. My hand did not just age 300 billion years. What happens is if you were to be a creature that moves that fast, just like lights, they say, okay, if you travel at the speed of light, everything around you slows down. If you go into a black hole, everything around you speeds up. That is the most backward shit I've ever heard. And then they say you'll go into a wormhole, teleport to another space-time, and you stop. Or else don't talk about Christians, talk about the world was made in 6 days. Because holy fuck. And if that does happen, if it were to have some type of wormhole properties, I'm pretty sure your atoms and your molecular structure will be burnt to crisp. So you wouldn't observe anything and you wouldn't teleport anywhere but to heaven. I'm sorry for what I just said. I was being sarcastic and people can possibly twist my words in the future. Okay, so I'm not an atheist because I don't know there. And I wasn't there at the crucifixion. I'm just trying to help y'all. Or maybe I was and I respawned a bunch of times. That was a joke. That was a joke. Because even if that was true, what do I know? Anyways, I'm just playing around. But the point is, so then if you were a creature that moved that fast, you would probably die before I blinked. Because that's how fast you'd be burning energy. Just like, think of it like super huge black holes or super huge stars and tiny massive stars that burn a lot of fuel. So how can I explain this in a way? Red giants. Red giants burn slow and last a lot longer than stars that nova. Because the novas are burning the fuel, so they die faster. But they're faster and more reactive and they turn to black holes. Explain that. Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. So essentially, but now back to reality. So if you was to go into a black hole, you're not going to touch the event horizon. The gravity won't allow you to get right there. What'll happen is, as you get closer, like they say, you'll spaghettify because the part that's closer to the gravitational poles, just like how, think of it like how planets have rings and how magnetic fields go like this from up to bottom. And so it creates a spot perfectly in the equilibrium. I'm not going to get into all that. So essentially what'll happen is, just like the star, you'll spaghettify and the part that's closer will go faster. And then the part that's further away will be getting pulled less fast. So by the time you actually wrap around it, your head will have wrapped like, but your feet will have wrapped less, if that makes sense. And so just YouTube a video of a star getting eaten by a black hole. That's what will happen if you touch the event horizon. I believe it's so massive. I believe it's so dense. I believe it's so massive and dense at a singularity, or however big, because a singularity, they talk about singularity could be the size of the sun, depending on how massive a black hole is. You see what I'm saying? And this is what I'm going to tell you all. They keep saying if we were to be in a black hole, if we were to touch a black hole, we are in the accretion disk of the Milky Way. The only reason the plasma doesn't burn us up is because the sun has a big ass atmosphere, and so does the planet Earth. They play so many head games that what I don't understand is why people that are the geniuses, just like when it comes to charges. Like if a hydrogen collapses into itself because it loses too much energy and can't maintain or gain so much that it does fusion and creates more, then is it collapsing into itself and canceling each other? No, it's leptons and baryons and Remember at first, the ones that knew it all said, you only got protons and electrons. But did you not know that they knew about subatomic particles a long time ago, and what they're teaching in science is incorrect? Totally incorrect. They're lying to everybody. They teach you so much to give you so much of an education so you can work for them in their corporations. And depending on how much money you give them to teach you, then I told somebody else this at work, you can't have money in this country. Because if you take the money out, you're either going to spend it, or if it's in a safe or something, or even a bank. What's going to happen is just like $100 200 years ago was buku money. Now, good luck. That's the same thing. You can't sit on money. So then you have to invest it back in everything. All these billionaire Forbes list, they don't have that 200 billion dollars. They have companies that they esteem to be worth that much. And if they sold enough stock and did this and that and blah, 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 that's how much money they would have in liquid cash. But it don't work like that. And there's a lot of taxes and why they don't do certain things. And even when you sell shit, why they're so sneaky and have churches and charity drives and blah, 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 blah. Sneaky fellows. And donate. Oh, they're going to be donating, y'all. A lot of you guys are pampered and don't really use pantries and things like that. You blah, 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 blah. Just like people at jobs, like, I worked hard at a job for 30 years and get all the employees of the months and paids and go on trips to blah, blah, blah. Then it's an old, decrepit motherfucker back there somewhere who was on that factory line that didn't get no recognition and was treated like a piece of shit and gonna get 70% of his income as retirement. It's all bullshit. So, and they probably be like, oh, he doesn't know retirement. He can't go to black hole. If we were in a black hole, what would happen? We're in one. I'm not talking about the universe's black hole, but if the universe is curved and it's completely full, as if it were packed with dense matter, and rotates and separates and contracts back in, that sounds like a black hole to me. But no, outside of that, what's actually happening is we're circling around a black hole in the accretion disk and are fairly close to the black hole. They don't teach people certain things, though. Protons, electrons. Because if an atom collapses, a hydrogen atom, it turns into literal photons and gamma rays. A photon is a gamma ray. Then is a form of it. So then, because visible light spectrum is a little different, but gamma rays have photons, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, the point is, without the nuclear force, it'll collapse into each other because the electron out here is balancing with the 1/3 negative lepton subatomic quark down here. Then the two other subatomic quarks that are attracted to that and that, all balancing each other out because a neutron will decay in 15 minutes. It'll turn back to a proton to balance itself because it can't collapse because that nuclear force is still there. So it turns to a proton and lets off a neutrino. What the fuck is that? Whenever something combines, conservation of energy, as that hydrogen collapses, each time it'll let off a positron, which is 1. Every time something cancels out, which means essentially in my mind, which if you go look at what the gluons are and how they look, and then go look at the gamma rays created in fusion. I believe these particles are slamming together because of quantum tunneling and their charges, because two photons can't attract to each other and a neutron can't attract to a proton because of the ups and down quarks. But because of the charge, if they're not in that reaction long, they'll apart. And they gain energy and lose energy when they do that. And they're released as gamma rays. I believe a bunch of gamma radiation or some type of plasma-like radiation is caught in between these bigger particles that are insulated because they also have radiation in them as well. I think there's a bunch of radiation and photons everywhere. I'm telling y'all, which is electromagnetic energy like a computer. And if you go deeper, an electron is 1. It has +1 charge. A proton, because it has 2 up quarks and a down quark. So it has 2/3 and 2/3 and 1 negative 1/3, or negative 1/3, which ends up being 4/3 over negative 1/3, which is 1 charge. A neutron, even though they say it's neutral, has 2 down quarks and up quark, which is 2 negative 1/3, and then a positive 1/3, or a positive 2/3, which cancel each other out. Poof! And the nuclear force can't keep it stable outside of protons. When all this shit is mashed together, it's surrounded by gamma radiation. I don't think that, so they say even light will redshift and it eventually lose enough energy to where it'll just dissipate. Once once it goes long enough. All light loses energy. So, in my mind, visible light, and that energy and shit aren't just waves. They are particles, but they're so tiny, like leptons, we can't view them in our spectrum yet and or observe them. So it's not just a wave; it's a particle that moves in a wave. And you know what's interesting? Micro and macro, the planets, the atmosphere, the magnetic fields, the gravitation, all that, circling around other objects, it's micro and macro. To a creature that's insanely fucking super large to us, which would mean it moves way slower because it's way more massive, depending on its energy input and output, we would be moving at the speed of unfucking realisticness. If I wasn't used to being on this planet because of inertia and perpetual force, I would lose my mind if I stepped foot on this planet. It would be spinning at a speed I could not fathom. The sun is moving, and we're rotating around that shit at 450,000 miles per hour, I think. And then we're going around the fucking black hole we live in, where if they said, what if we were in a black... I'm tired of bullshit. The gravity is only super that strong at the event horizon. And you fuck around and find out when you watch a star get eaten by what would happen. I don't think anything is strong enough to get into that type of packed reaction. Just like I can't take my foot and slam through concrete, even though no atoms are actually touching. The same way you couldn't get into that event horizon, I believe.